Hey there, Claudia King here, founder of Automio, creator of Scale Up, and award-winning legal entrepreneur. In this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 biggest mistakes I made when growing my law firm. So let's get into it. So peeps, here is the deal. When I was growing my law firm, I made so many mistakes, so many. And if I'm completely honest with you, those mistakes probably cost me millions of dollars. Now, before I tell you what those mistakes were, I really want to give you a sense of what my life was like when I first started growing my law firm, when I first became a law firm owner, compared to what it was like when I sold my law firm in 2017. So I became a law firm owner in 2010. I was 27 at the time. I was working 70+ hours a week and I was pretty miserable. I was not a good people manager. I was not a good leader. I was a terrible delegator. I didn't know anything about marketing or sales. But one thing I knew, or that I did believe, was that I wanted to figure out how to grow my law firm online in a scalable way so that I could increase my revenue and profit, but work less, do less legal work, do more stuff that I wanted to do. So fast forward to 2017, so I'd been able to, through a lot of trial and error and a lot of making mistakes, I was really able to build on my resilience and to become a much better leader. And as a result, I was able to, I hardly did any legal work at the end, and I was really able to focus on the parts of the business that I enjoyed, like marketing, and also take advantage of the opportunities that were coming my way, the biggest one being my legal tech company that I now run, Automio. So the mistakes that I made, like I said, there are so many, but I think that I can sort of boil most of them down to these 5 mistakes that I am going to share with you today. So mistake number 1 is I was too slow to niche. So when I first launched my online legal service, Legal Beagle, in 2012, if you went and had a look at the website, on offer was pretty much every legal service under the sun. There was no clear niche, there was no clear ideal client. So I thought that I was pretty much just a big failure. But then I figured out that to get people to come to my website, I needed to do some online marketing. So remember, this is 2012, and I honestly believed at that time that because my website was out on the internet, that people would just magically find it and come to it and become my client. But obviously that wasn't the case, didn't get any clients. But before I gave up, and I nearly did give up, but before I gave up, I started reading and learning about online marketing. And one of the key things I learned was that to get fast traction with online marketing, you really need to choose a niche and an ideal client and create a service or a package of services that you can sell to that ideal client that gets them really good results. So I decided to narrow our niche to conveyancing, and the ideal client that I chose was a first home buyer. So what I did is I went to the website and I went to the conveyancing page that was already there, and I rewrote the entire thing and made it really targeted at the pains and problems and frustrations of first home buyers. The next thing I did was I created a Google ad, because I learned that to get people to my website, I had to pay to send them there using ads. And so I went and created a Google ad so that every time a first home buyer in New Zealand searched for a lawyer, our ad would pop up. So I created the Google ad and we started running the campaign, and within 30 minutes of this campaign, this Google ad campaign running, we got our first client in through the website, which was so exciting. And then within about 30 days, we were getting 5 to 10 new clients per day through the website because of the way that we had niched and created the Google ad specifically for first home buyers. So that was a great thing to learn, but it was a big mistake in that for 18 months, we didn't get any clients. So 18 months is a long time to not get any clients in through that online legal service. So that's a lot of money left on the table. Mistake number 2 was that I managed my team for too long. So I did a strengths test, or to go back a step, one of the big problems I had while I was growing my law firm is that we hit a revenue ceiling at one point. We just weren't getting any more growth. And one of the biggest problems that we had was that I was unhappy because I really didn't like managing my team of employees. I found it really boring. I found it really tedious. And so it made me miserable. But I thought that as a business owner, as a law firm owner, it was just one of those things I had to do. But then I went and did a strengths test. And what I learned from that was that all my strengths are in strategic thinking and influencing, and all my weaknesses are in relationship, which made a lot of sense that, I was not happy with managing the day-to-day management of a team of people. So it was a real aha moment for me because I was all like, well, why am I doing that when it's a weakness? Why aren't I playing to my strengths? And so what I decided to do was hire an operations manager and change the organizational structure of my firm so that some of the lawyers stepped into more sort of manager, supervisory type roles. And pretty much as soon as I got this new structure in place, we burst through that revenue ceiling, and that's when the firm really started to take off. But it really showed me that I did manage the team for too long. And if I had realized that earlier, because managing my team on a day-to-day basis had made me miserable, if I'm honest, for years. And I wish that I had learnt that earlier. So that's why I consider that one of my biggest mistakes. Mistake number 3 is that I didn't outsource properly. So I mentioned before that one of the key way really that I got the Legal Beagle conveyancing service to start growing was through using a Google ad. And so our Google Ads campaign was initially managed by me, and I got it going, even though I've never done that sort of thing before. But I watched a bunch of videos and read a bunch of articles and created my own Google campaign and got it working well. But then it got to a point where it became too much work and I wanted to outsource it to a digital agency. So I looked around online and I picked a digital agency and I outsourced the running of our Google campaign to them. And almost immediately, the number of new clients coming in through our online conveyancing service dropped. And of course, I was really disappointed about that. And I talked to the digital agency and, I explained what the results were that I was getting and what I expected from them. And they said to me that they really needed a couple of months to test the campaign and get things going. And then they were sure that they would be able to get better results than what I was getting. So I said, okay, I will agree to that. And a few months later, they hadn't improved the results. In fact, the results that they were getting were worse, which caused us to have quite a significant dip in our revenue over those few months. So I was really quite pissed off about this, and I took the campaigns back and I started running them myself again. And pretty much instantly, we saw our results go back up to where they were when I was running the campaign before this digital marketing agency took it over. And at the time, I was really, really annoyed with them about this. And it really burnt me and it stopped me from outsourcing a number of things that I should have outsourced but didn't because I was burnt by this one experience. But then I learnt that when you are outsourcing something like a Google Ads campaign, you have to effectively nurture and manage that relationship with the digital agency or the contractor. And I was not doing that. I pretty much just gave it to them and said sort of good luck, see you later. I did not have any regular meetings. There was no standard agenda. There were no set metrics that we discussed that they were using to judge their performance by, and as a result, it didn't work at all. But then once I learned that I needed these things like regular meetings, meeting agendas, metrics targets for people to aim for. Once I realized this, then further on down the track, I actually found that outsourcing was a very effective way to get things off my plate and off my team's plate so that we could focus on other more important things so that we could grow faster. Mistake number 4 was that I didn't know my numbers. So when I first became a law firm, I guess that I had a little bit of a leg up in that my very first job was as a tax lawyer. So I learned a lot about numbers and financial statements and the different types of metrics that businesses use to judge their performance on. So I learned a lot about that in my first job. So when I started as a business owner, as a law firm owner, I knew about tracking my revenue and my expenses and my profit. But when it came to growing my law firm online, there were a whole lot of other metrics that I needed to be using that I didn't for a long time. So for example, as a law firm who has an online legal service, you really need to know your cost per click, your cost per lead, your cost per client, those sorts of things. But I didn't know that for so long. Once I learnt to do that though, I was able to really use my numbers, my business numbers, to drive growth. And I'll give you an example of that. So what I learnt is that for every dollar I spent on ads, I got $8 back on revenue. Now that's really valuable information to have. The other thing that I learned was that so with leads, so you get a lead when somebody comes to your website and they give you their email address in exchange for a valuable piece of content. So I knew that to reach a certain revenue goal every month, I needed a certain number of leads. So that was our lead target for the month. What I then knew was that from looking at sort of traditional historic numbers for my law firm, I knew that if I didn't meet my leads target one month, 2 months later, I would have a dip in revenue. And I could see that by looking at the historical metrics of my law firm. Now, the reason why that is super valuable is it means that if I would have a down month in terms of leads, I could spend more money the next month on marketing, and it would mean that we would not have a dip in revenue. So the point that I'm trying to make is that by knowing your numbers, you're able to create predictability around your revenue and your profit that you just don't have when you don't take notice and you don't keep track of those numbers. And then mistake number 5 was that I didn't leverage partnerships early enough. So something I learned early on was that building an audience of your ideal clients, it costs money and it takes time. And so I knew that there were other businesses out there that had big audiences of my ideal client. And then if I partnered with them, then that would be great because I could leverage their hard work in building up an audience and get in front of their audience. So I knew that from the start, but what happened is I formed a couple of strategic partnerships earlier on in my journey with some partners, and they did not go well. And so again, I felt really burnt and avoided putting together valuable strategic partnerships because I thought that they didn't work. But the reason why these initial partnerships didn't work, so there's a similar theme here, was that we didn't manage those partnerships well. We didn't have regular meetings, we didn't have a set meeting agenda, we didn't have metrics that we would judge the performance of the partnership on. So the partnerships didn't work. And then over the next couple of years, I had a lot of strategic partnership opportunities come my way. Some really valuable ones that could have been really lucrative for my firm, that I said, no, these types of partnerships are more, they're too much work. They don't produce the goods, so I'm going to say no. Then further on down the track, I entered into a strategic partnership. I didn't really want to, but I did anyway. It went really well and we got a lot of growth from it. And the reason why it went well was because it was well managed, and there were regular meetings, good meeting agenda, good metrics that we would judge the partnership on, and it worked really well. And what I then realized was that I had said no to all these great strategic partnership opportunities over a number of years that could have been really lucrative and generated a lot of revenue from my firm. So in hindsight, I wished that I had taken my time to get those initial partnerships going well, so that I could have taken advantage of these other partnership opportunities that came up along the way. So let's recap. So the 5 biggest mistakes I made when I was growing my law firm. Number 1 is I was too slow to niche. Number 2 was I managed my team for too long. Number 3 was that I didn't know how to outsource properly. Number 4 was I didn't know my numbers. And number 5 is I didn't leverage strategic partnerships. If there's anything these past months have shown us, it's that the time to make lasting, impactful change in the legal industry is right now. So I want to challenge you to shake things up and create change today. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video with your lawyer friends. See you next week.